Mm. So, hello everyone. We are on a module 2, which is the information security and principles and classification. Okay. So, information security, simply put, it as a multidisciplinary field focused on protecting the confidentiality, integrity, availability, and authenticity of information. Think of it as putting the right locks, alarms, and guards around your digital world so that only the right people get in and the data doesn't get messed. Okay. Now, let's okay, let's have a quick breakdown of these key terms. Again, for confidentiality, okay, keeping secret stuff secret. Okay. For instance, you wouldn't want a random stranger viewing your bank account balance or personal medical records. Integrity, making sure the data has not been altered or tampered. Okay. Imagine sending $100 to a friend via online banking, but a hacker intercepts it and changes the amount to uh, $1,000. Okay. Now, integrity controls prevent that in happening. Availability, ensuring the system works when you need it. If your uh, university portal crashes right after or right before a midnight deadline, then that's an availability issue. Authenticity, knowing that the message or person is actually who they claim to be. Uh, have you ever gotten a suspicious text claiming to be from your bank asking for a PIN? Okay. Now, checking if that's a real or fake is all about authenticity. Now, to build on that, okay, InfoSec is all about putting practical measures in place or in place to protect our data and systems from our major threats, okay, which are unauthorized access, disclosure, alteration, and distraction. Now, let's look at what those actually mean in this real setup or in a real world setup. Unauthorized access, meaning this happens when someone sneaks into a system they should not be in. Okay, think of it like a classmate logging into your student portal because you left your laptop unattended. Okay, disclosure. This is when a private data gets exposed to the wrong people. A classic example is a of this is a company accidentally leaking customer passwords or credit card numbers online. Next, alteration. This involves someone changing or tampering with data without permission. Um, Imagine a hacker breaking into a database and changing their final grades from an F to an A. Okay, and distraction. This is the complete loss or wiping of a data. Okay, an example would be a ransomware where malware encrypts or deletes critical company files so nobody can use them anymore. So whenever we design security controls, our main goal is to block these four things from happening. Again, unauthorized access, disclosure, alteration, and distraction. Now let's talk briefly about this bedrock of the entire cybersecurity world or information security world. our CIA triad. Okay. Now, here is the thing on how this three works together. With confidentiality, this is about privacy. Okay, we use things like passwords, encryption, and two-factor authentication so that sensitive information stays restricted to authorized users. Then next, you have your integrity, which is about accuracy and trust. It ensures data stays exact and untampered with. Okay, we use tools like digital signatures and checksums, uh, so you will know a file has not been modified on its way to the receiver or to you itself. Okay. Next, availability. This is about accessibility. Okay. Even if the data is completely secret and totally accurate, it's useless if you can get, okay, if you can get to it and whenever you need it. Okay. Now, think of a server backups and protection against DDoS. Okay, or DDoS attacks that keeps websites up and running 24/7. Now, every single pin or every single security measure you'll be ever to set up, from a simple phone pin to an enterprise firewall, okay, make sure to target at least one of these three core principle: the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, question number one: if, okay, here is a question number one: if a hacker if a hacker breaks into a school database and changes their failing grade to an A, which part of the CIA triad was compromised? Was it confidentiality, integrity, or availability? Okay. Write your answer in, I think, one half sheet of yellow paper. Then, in writing your answer, kindly indicate what question number uh, that is for in your paper. Okay. Now, now that we understand the core goals, let's look at how InfoSec is broken down into practice. We have at least divided the InfoSec into five different classifications. Okay, we have the first three, which is network security. Network security focuses on protecting data while it's actively moving from point A to point B. Okay, across our networks or across the organization networks and protocols. Okay, think of tools like firewalls, VPNs, or Wi-Fi passwords that keep uh, eavesdroppers from intercepting your web traffic. Okay. Application security. This is all about safeguarding software and apps from code level vulnerabilities. It means writing secure code and patching software so hackers can exploit bugs, or you can prevent a SQL injection attack on your web platform. Physical security. This protects the actual hardware where your data lives. Okay. All the digital defenses in the world won't help if someone can walk into a server room and grab a hard drive. Okay. It includes physical controls like keycards, security cameras, and lock data, or your smart lock for your data centers. Okay, or your data center doors. Now, moving to the next two more classifications, we have the endpoint security. Okay, this focuses on protecting the actual user devices connecting to a network, like your personal laptop, smartphone, or workstation. Since end user devices are often the easiest target for hackers, we secure them using antivirus software, device encryption, and strict access controls. Lastly is your cloud security. This addresses the unique security challenges of off-site platforms just like your Google Drive, AWS, or the Microsoft Azure. Okay. Um, this ensures that data stored or processed in the cloud remains protected even through strong data encryption and identity uh, identity management. Okay, so therefore, unauthorized users can touch your cloud assets. Now, let's look at a practical network security scenario to see how this will play out. Okay. Now, imagine a large bank processing thousands of transactions and handling sensitive client data every single minute. Now, here is why securing that network matters. Okay. Now, let's check what is at stake. Okay. The money transfers, client records, okay, staff communications that are being allowed or that are flowing across the network simultaneously. So, what is the risk? Okay. Now, if an attacker intercept network traffic, they could steal credentials or tamper with live transaction amounts. Now, how do we fix the? How do we come up with a solution? Now, bank channels to make sure every byte of data stays locked down while moving across the wire or the network. Now, building on our bank scenario, okay, building on this scenario, okay, we had identified some security measures that we can adapt. Okay, we can deploy firewalls that sit right after or right at the edge of the network, which is acting like a security checkpoint at a building entrance. They will inspect, or this firewall inspects incoming and outgoing traffic based on a preset or a okay, preset rules, okay, um, blocking unauthorized connections while letting safe traffic to pass through. Next, installing IDS and IPS. IDS again stands for intrusion detection system, and IPS is for intrusion prevention system. Now, think of IDS as a security camera that will alert you when someone breaks in, while the IPS is the automated security guard that physically blocks the intruder in a real time before they reach the main vault. Now, continuing with in our measures, okay, we have mandatory VPN access requiring a virtual private network that will create a secure, encrypted a local coffee shop, then the VPN makes sure no eavesdropper on the public Wi-Fi can snoop on sensitive bank data. Another one is network segmentation. This means dividing the larger network into smaller, isolated subnetworks that will be based on employee roles. Okay, think of it like a hotel key card, wherein a teller's key should let them into the front desk system, okay, but not the HR database or the IT control room. Okay. Now, if or they would not be able to access the two measures is to access control and multi-factor authentication. Okay. Passwords alone are not enough anymore in this setup or in this current setup. Okay, MFA forces users to verify their identity using at least two different methods, like a passwords plus a temporary code sent to a phone app. Okay, which this will ensure that stolen passwords don't automatically lead to a possible breach. Encryption protocols. Organizations use protocols like the SSL and TLS, okay, to scramble data, okay, while it's moving across the internet. Now, even if a hacker intercepts the transmission, all they can see is useless. It's an unreadable gibberish or unreadable or in an unreadable format of data. Okay. Next. Now, let us check this application security scenario. Now, imagine an online shopping giant like Amazon or Shopee. Thousands of users are making payments and checking out items every minute. Okay. Now, especially in this scenario wherein you are just at home, okay, and uh, I know you are already checking out many things in your Shopee or Lazada account. Okay. Now, here is why securing the actual web platform or application code is so critical. And what is at stake? Okay. These are your customer credit card details, okay, residential addresses, and live payment processing. So what is the possible risk or what are the real world risk? Okay. If there's a flaw in the website's code, okay, an attacker could hijack checkout forms or manipulate price values in their shopping cart. Now, what is the goal? Application security ensures that web applications operate safely, compliant with data privacy laws, and that will protect customer data from code exploits. Now, to prevent those risks in happening, okay, organizations can implement the following application security measures. We have here code review and static code analysis. Okay, before any new feature goes live, security tools and developers inspect the source code line by line. Now, this will help catch the security vulnerabilities as early as possible. Okay, like catching a broken lock before the door is installed. So you have also your web application firewall, which unlike a traditional network firewall, a web application firewall specifically watches the web traffic. Okay. that are coming into in the or coming into the app. Okay, this filters out malicious web attacks like cross-site scripting or XSS or SQL injections before they can hit the application server. Now, let's compare the two key app security practices, which is the code review versus or and the static analysis. Now, let's check first at their nature. Okay, code review. This is a manual human process. Developers sit down together, okay, to systematically inspect the source code for logic, quality, and coding conventions. Okay, so for example, a senior dev might notice a function that works but suggest a faster algorithm to improve the performance. While uh, static analysis, this is fully automated. Okay, specialized tools scan the source code without executing it. Okay, checking for known vulnerability patterns. For example, a scanner can immediately flag a line of code that will leave the app open to an SQL injection attack. Now, it's fast, objective, and scales easily across thousands of lines of codes. Now, let's try to look at when this happened in the development process or in the development life cycle. Okay. The timing for code review is done right after the initial coding phase. Okay. This is usually when a developer submits a pull request, okay, before merging changes into the main code base. Now, the team reviews the pull request to ensure that the new feature adheres to the project standards before it becomes official. Now, the timing for static analysis, it can it can happen continuously throughout the development. Okay, this runs automated scans inside the continuous integration pipelines before or every time the code is committed, giving the developers an instant feedback before they even submit a pull request. Now, finally, let's check or what kind of issues do they catch. For code review, the scope is it focuses on high-level human aspects, meaning the architecture, code structure, design patterns, and readability. A reviewer might comment on variable naming, clear comment, or the comment usage, or the overall code maintainability. Now, for the static analysis, it's limited strictly to what the tool is uh, rules configured to find. Okay, it excels at spotting hard rules or hard rule violations and security risk. For instance, flagging a line of code where sensitive user data gets lagged into a plain text file without encryption. Okay. Question number two: If our team wants an if our team wants an automated tool to scan thousands of lines, okay, or thousands lines of codes during a build, okay, build to or during a build to catch SQL injection flaws, okay, are we using or will we be using manual code review or static analysis? Again, um, if our team wanted an automated tool to scan thousands of line of codes during a build, just to catch SQL injection flaws, are we using a manual code review or a static analysis? And maybe you may want to support your answer on a question why. Okay. Now write your answer in the paper where you have written your answer in question one. Okay, because that will be submitted as we meet. Next, continuing with our application security measures. Now, check on the authentication and authorization controls. Now, this authentication verifies who you are using MFA, while authorization determines what you can do once logged in. So, for example, logging in as a regular customer will let you buy items, but authorization controls will block you from accessing administrative dashboard or other users' profile. Secure session management. Applications use session timeouts and secure cookie flags to protect active user sessions. Now, if you walk away from your computer, the application automatically logs you out or makes your computer on a sleep mode after a set period, so no one else can hijack your session. Then, now to finally complete the application defenses or measures, we have encryption in transit and at rest. Okay, sensitive customers' data like credit card numbers, okay, must be scrambled both while traveling or okay while traveling uh, over the network or in the internet. That is what we call in transit. And while sitting inside database servers, those are the data at rest. Okay. Now, if someone steals a database backup file, the encrypted data remains unreadable without the decryption key. Now, ongoing developer training. Okay, security starts with the people who are writing the code. Okay, so regular training keeps developers aware of emerging vulnerabilities, especially in this world of AI or in the AI era, which helps them adapt. Okay, secure coding. Okay, habits or practices. Okay, and any tools or technologies that will prevent security bugs before they can reach the production. Okay, so we'll continue the physical or the other classifications on the next part of this recording. Thank you.